Everybody, this is Perch. We've talked a lot about replacement characters. When you take a legacy character and then suddenly you're giving them a new mantle, a new person steps into that role. And generally speaking, it's not accepted. It doesn't work. The fan base dislikes it. Marvel or DC, whoever's doing this, will kind of kick it around for a little bit. Like, God, no, it's super popular. Honest, we swear. I pay no attention to those people. They're full of crap. But it's actually really popular. People are loving the new direction. They're loving it, man. It's a parody. You know, if you've seen things like just a bunch of the old sitcoms or shows, Entourage, classic example where you'd get like the sleazy agent or the Hollywood people like, oh no, it's perfect, it's perfect. This remake, everybody's totally into it. They're totally down with it. I was canceled. Who knew? Well, sorry, that's the way the business goes, there, buddy. It often feels like that. But sometimes it is successful, and I've had several people say, "Hey, Riri Williams didn't work as Iron Man, but looks like Elektra is working as Daredevil. What's the difference?" Well, pretty easy, actually. Elektra is an established character who's been around for a long time, just like Jim Rhodes was for Iron Man. Just like when Nightwing took over the mantle for Bruce Wayne, that one felt a little bit weird because they spent so much time getting. Richard Grayson to have his own personality, and that personality didn't fit Batman. And Grant Morrison and others kind of played with that a little bit, but it didn't feel the same. But generally speaking, if the character has an established history, has a place in the lore of whoever the character is that they're going to replace for a period of time, people are generally more accepting as long as you don't break one cardinal rule. That is, don't have the character start acting differently. So a classic example of this is Falcon. So Falcon had an established personality that had been for decades in the comics. The character, was written a certain way, talked a certain way, behaved a certain way. The character had his own personality, his own very established personality. And then once they put Falcon into the Captain America outfit, suddenly he became kind of militaristic, became more like, not patriotic exactly, but became more like a cop rather than the Falcon. The Falcon always had a pretty good personality, but suddenly it was like Steve Rogers talking, like a more, douchey Steve Rogers talking out of the Falcon's mouth. It didn't work. And that's why you had a lot of people say, I really wish he'd go back to being the Falcon. It wasn't, I'm sure for some, but for most people, it had nothing to do with the Captain America business. It had to do with the fact that the character changed. When James Rhodes became Iron Man, he still sounded like Rhodes. He behaved and acted like himself. He didn't suddenly start to hey, I'm a rich socialite. I'm popular with the ladies, and I think I'll have a martini. How about that? You didn't get that. And I believe that's again another reason why Miles Morales has largely worked as Spider-Man. Now, granted, he's his own character, and they're trying to distance characters as much as they can, and that's smart. But look at how Miles was written. He wasn't written like Peter. He didn't suddenly get kind of awkward at school, and he didn't start fighting with Joe Jameson. In fact, whenever they would do things that would make him more like Peter and less like Miles, the fans would reject it every single time. So look at Elektra. Elektra steps in to portray Daredevil while Daredevil's in prison. And generally, Elektra was herself in the Daredevil comic. And here comes a big but. But she acted like Elektra, dressed up like Daredevil. The story made sense. People didn't reject it because it worked, more or less. Now, I said there was a big but. The weird part, and this is the part that I find fascinating, is if you looked at how Elektra was written in other comics, for example, in Echo, when there was that brief limited series, Elektra showed up. Suddenly, Elektra is not sounding like Elektra. She sounds like Daredevil, like Matt. It's no longer the assassin. It's this almost enhanced version of the original character. And this is one of the biggest problems with the replacement stuff that they've done, is they make the characters who are replacing an exaggerated version of the original. Now think about it for a minute, and honestly, that is the problem. Carol Danvers, when she was Miss Marvel, had her own personality, had her own flaws, had her own strengths, had her own kind of person, had her own thing. When she became Captain Marvel, they did this weird thing where they made her suddenly they lean into the military expert part, oh, she's an Air Force pilot, so she's great at strategy. It's like, hang on a second. For decades, we've had a different Carol. Why did her personality suddenly change? And why is she like Captain America, only more? And that's always what they do. They go to the archetypes of these characters and they enhance them. And usually in an unlikable, unpleasant way. Carol Danvers becomes this Captain America-like character, but it's still Carol. And most readers who like Carol as Miss Marvel, or just like the character in general, rejected it. They didn't want it. And the people who are new to the comics read it and like, this character sounds kind of one-dimensional and douchey. Which is when a lot of new people came in to read the Falcon. I remember this in my shop, and he was suddenly Captain America. Like, why is he like a douchey Steve Rogers in black? It's like, no, that's the Falcon. It's like, what? No, who's that? No, and we spent this afternoon reading a bunch of old Falcon appearances, and he sounded nothing like this. When Riri Williams took the mantle of Iron Man, they didn't, they made sure like, oh, she's also a tech genius, maybe even a better tech genius, and she started sounding like a douchey version of Tony Stark, who was already a douche, and douche on top of douche means unlikable. That's what you got. A lot of these characters, they don't let them be themselves. So Elektra, popular, or at least it works for the time being. I think most people believe Matt will return, and he is. He already has at the end of Devil's Reign. He's back. But you've got Elektra in this new outfit, and she's leaning into the hand aspects of her, and the kind of she's being herself. Here's a weird kind of bizarre part to all this. It's they want to, when the writers say, hey, we want to take away the identity from the white dude and we want to give it to somebody who's a little bit more diverse to kind of shake things up, they erase the diverse character's personality. It's like they no better way to say it, they whitewash the character's soul. They still look, diverse, they still look different, but inside, or the way that they talk, the way they behave is borrowed from the original, typically white dude. Why do this? It's bizarre, and it takes the likable aspects of the character away. Time and time again, this is how it goes, and the people reject it. If Elektra is going to be successful as Daredevil, they need to let her still be Elektra. She can call herself Daredevil, she can put on a Daredevil costume, but she needs to behave like Elektra. Or at least if you're going to shift her personality, show the readers the journey of how you did that. I have every expectation that Falcon, as Captain America, is going to fail. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird. In the first issue, the issue 0, and the issue where of Falcon as Cap in his own title, once again, they're not writing Falcon as Falcon, as Sam. Let him be himself. When did he suddenly become a grizzled kind of no fun World War II vet? When Mark Waid wrote Sam Wilson in The Avengers, when he took over it, the character again was unlikable. It was written like it was written like out of time Steve Rogers. He's like, all right, soldiers, we're gonna go fly. Like the Falcon never talked like that. Why make him like that? Why not let him be himself? Why have you erased his identity? Ironically, by giving him someone else's. Please understand my argument. I'm not saying you shouldn't give these characters a chance to have the legacy or the mantle, and run with it for a while. You can do that. But don't erase their personality in the process if you want to be successful. Elektra has decades of continuity and personality and established nature to the character. She is going to be more accepted as a replacement character or a legacy character for Daredevil than, say, Riri was ever going to be accepted for Iron Man. Riri was brand new to the scene and was, basically a younger black female Tony Stark. That's how they wrote her. That's not going to work. Whenever they let the characters have their own personalities, it tends to go a lot better. The replacement works, or at least it's not hated. It's not instantly rejected. So let people be themselves. How weird to say that. But I think if you're going to increase diversity, if you're going to add these new characters, go for it. Look at Hawkeye is another good example. So Kate Bishop takes over Clint Barton. The original Kate Bishop was fairly likable as a character in Young Avengers. She had her own personality, did her own things. And then we had this time where it was like she became Clint. parts of her personality were erased, and instead it's like, things can never go well for, things are always going wrong, and it just, they gave her Clint's personality rather than keeping her own. And it's like if I dress the character up in the costume and I give the character the name, I also have to erase whatever got people to like that character in the first place, or at least give the character a chance. And again, why would you do this? It's a terrible decision, and it always fails. I don't know. So it's interesting. People have asked, why does one thing work and not the other? The answer is usually, I think, pretty obvious. The character loses themselves. You take away their soul. What's the point of moving Sam Wilson into Captain America if you're going to give him Steve Rogers' personality? What have you accomplished? Let Sam Wilson be Sam Wilson. Honestly, giving him the mantle of Cap is somewhat irrelevant to the whole picture. If you do it and you keep his personality as himself, then readers will go, "Oh, okay, well, here's something different in his. Let's see what happens." They will tend to at least give it a shot. If you basically just change the skin traits of the character, people are going to ask for the original back. That's just kind of how it's going to work. Anyway, something to think about. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thanks for listening.